So good evening. Again, my name is Toby
Talk
Hecht.
a little bit louder, please.
Hang on, I'm just going to read this one here. Okay, today on the calendar is the Hebrew date of the 27th of Nisan, and today, we're concluding Yom Hashoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. And in commemoration of this day, I would like to share an incredible story. Let me begin in July 2022. I was on a kosher cruise, a river cruise in France, traveling from Paris to Normandy and back with my mother and several sisters and sisters-in-law. Most passengers on the trip were retracing the footsteps of family members who had fought in either World War. After touring the beaches at Normandy and the Normandy American Cemetery, our boat started the trip back to Paris. On our last night on the Seine, with the fresh memory of heroes on our mind, we gathered and heard personal reflections shared by descendants of those who fought for liberty and freedom from tyranny. Esther, from Long Island, told us the following story about her father, Shmuel Elyakim Schwartz. He was raised in a Hasidic family in Hungary, one of 7 kids, 6 boys and 1 girl. Shmuel, as a kid, was unruly and difficult to manage, and after getting kicked out of yeshiva at the age of 13, his family sent him to Israel. And about 3 years later, he ended up on the shores of America, specifically the streets of New York, as a young, rambunctious 16-year-old looking for work. He was a strong kid with macho bravado who wanted muscles to go with it. He was working out in a gym one day when he overheard 2 ex-cons talking about joining the army, where one could get a steady paycheck. Now Shmuel, or Sam, as he was later known, speaking mostly Hungarian and Yiddish, barely knew English. But like the 2 guys, he knew the country was getting ready for a war. He also knew his mother and siblings were still in Europe and thought maybe he could help them get out this way. So he decided to follow their lead. The U.S. Army was working on a new division, one that was filled with risk and danger. Being the daredevil he was, Shmuel decided to enlist in what would become the 82nd Airborne Division, the 1st paratroopers, the most daring missions. He lied about his age, and he signed up. After passing all the physical exams, he trained for months to become a Pathfinder, and I believe the 504th platoon, the first of the parachutes to drop over enemy lines to find a safe path for the rest of the unit. Operation Husky, Neptune, and D-Day, hence his daughter traveling to Normandy, were some of the operations he was on. They were known as the Devils in Baggy Pants. He jumped missions in North Africa, Sicily, Belgium, France, to name a few, often being the only one to survive a jump and/or mission. His daughter, named Dre, said that there was one miracle after the next, and she said it was as though a malach, an angel, was protecting him every step of the way. He served for 3 years, and through it all saw things no eyes should ever see. He came back, got married, and had 5 daughters. They didn't know much growing up, and they didn't have an easy household. His parents had few possessions when they died. Shmuel never got an education, but worked hard, and all of his daughters became professionals in different fields. They knew bits and pieces of what happened during the war, that he was a paratrooper, that his 6 siblings and his mother were murdered, and that he jumped in the Battle of the Bulge, and that he did feel that there was an angel every step of the way. There was an Air Force jacket with all sorts of medals attached to it. After both parents passed away, there was a lottery, and Dre got to keep the jacket. Having no idea what any of the medals were, she did research through a Facebook page with people interested in history and collectors of World War II memorabilia. She started uploading photos of different braids and medals and got 300 excited responses. One person said he had never seen a jacket with so many medals. There was one patch, a devil on a round patch, that was created before the war. The online people said there were only 3 known of those jackets, and now this one was the 4th. There was a bidding war. Everyone wanted to buy the jacket from her. One person told her, "Sell your firstborn before you sell that jacket." Long story short, the jacket is front and center at the museum in Israel, honoring 1.5 million Jewish soldiers who fought the Germans in World War II. It seemed no other entity worldwide cared about these heroes, but as incredible as this story of Purple Hearts and Devil Patches is, here's the kicker. Esther, on the boat in France, tells us that she was paying a Shiva call to a woman she knew on Long Island. As she walks into the home, she sees her friend Esther, also Esther Kappel Halberstam, handing a picture to a Hasidic Rebbe named Rabbi Meisel, who was also sitting in the Shiva house with a huge group of his Hasidim, his followers from Brooklyn. Esther recognized the picture. They had the same one in their album at home. It was her father in the middle and two survivors from the concentration camp on either side. Shocked, she asked her friend, "What are you doing with the picture of my father?" The Rebbe, sitting there, Rabbi Meisel, turned to her, also in shock, as did others in the room, and said, "That's your father?" It was a tumult of emotions. The Rebbe proceeded to tell her a story. He and his father were in that concentration camp, and Shmuel was one of the people who liberated them. He saved their lives and others. Even as Shmuel found his dead brother in the pile of bodies, the survivors there were so weak, ill and starved, eating grass. He didn't have an education, but he had a keen sense about him, and he knew they couldn't overwhelm their shrunken stomachs with too much food. So he helped them eat slowly, often spoon-feeding them and taking care of them. They didn't even know he was Jewish. They thought of Jews as being in concentration camps, not heroes in uniform. The Rebbe asked Esther if her father was still alive, and she said yes, though he suffered from Alzheimer's. The Rebbe wanted to visit him right then from the Shiva house. So Esther called her mother and told her to expect a Rebbe and his entire entourage to their small apartment. The Rebbe came with his entourage and sat and spoke to Shmuel in Yiddish. And when her father passed away, the Rebbe asked if he could give a eulogy for this man that he referred to as a tzaddik, a righteous man. Now, let me explain something to you here. For a Hasidic man to go into a more, I'd say a non-Hasidic funeral home and give a talk in English in front of both men and women where the separation was pretty low might have seemed unseemly. But that didn't matter to the Rebbe. He felt he needed to pay his last respects to the man who saved him and his father, who was a Rebbe in his own right, whom they never forgot, and who they felt they owed their lives and the lives of their Hasidim and descendants to, and to share the story with everyone there. When he himself, the Rebbe, passed away last year, Dre told me that two sisters went to pay their respects. They were worried about being able to come inside. After all, they're not Hasidim, and they don't dress in the typical Hasidic garb as women who are, part of the Hasidic community. But armed with the photo of their father, with the Rebbe and his father from that liberation day, they went anyway. When they reached the Shiva house in Seagate, Brooklyn, and showed the picture, everybody stood up for them in respect and made a pathway to the family members on the men's side too, where they were treated, to their shock, with royalty, because everyone there, all the thousands of the Hasidim that were there who had come through, knew who their father, Shmuel Elyakim Schwartz, was. And as one family member said, that the Rebbe carried the photo from that liberation day in his pocket every single day. It went from shirt to shirt to shirt. It never, ever left his side. Now, to be honest, I wasn't planning to speak here tonight, but for some reason, I was remembering Esther and her father these last few days, and I scrolled through my photos and came across this photo. This photo of liberation was in my photos for some reason. I remembered that her name was Esther, but I couldn't find her. And I finally found her in text messages from 2022 where she had sent me another photo of her father. And I called her, and I spoke to her and her sister to confirm these details. And after hearing it all, I felt compelled to share it here on this important day, Holocaust memory. And so tonight, I want to honor this man, Shmuel Elyakim Schwartz, also known as Sam Schwarz, and his family for his profound righteousness and heroism as an American soldier who risked his life in the countless missions defending the American flag, to saving starving survivors, to raising a beautiful Jewish family in New York. Today, we only know this story because of the fortuitous series of events with his daughters putting together the pieces of their father that they knew, an unsung hero who has since become a legend. And so, God willing, I'd like to say that we're going to put this exact photo on the wall with a little description in the wall in the hallway, or maybe in this room, of Sam Schwartz. May his memory be for a blessing.